I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Thursday, January 11th meeting, 2018 of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you'd like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, and according to Mr. Murphy, we are going to be down 2 people this evening. You must inform the chairperson immediately following the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in the public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. The first thing I'm looking for is a motion on the minutes for the December 14th meeting.
Motion. Move it.
Support.
Support by Mr. Muller. Any corrections, additions, deletions?
Don't see any.
Not seeing any. I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's taken care of. And we only have one thing on our agenda this evening, item D1, case number 180101. We've got about 10 different requests that are being
That's good.
hand it over to you, sir.
Sure. Subject property is located on Mary. It's 1 block north of 12 and 1 block west of Main Street. It's zone multiple family. As you can see from the photograph, it contains a 1-story building with 3 apartment units. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 2nd-story addition and add 3 more units on the upper level, so that would result in a total of 6 units in the building. They did receive site plan approval from the Planning Commission at the Planning Commission's December meeting, with the approval based on the petitioner obtaining all the necessary variances from the board, hence the reason they're here today. The zoning ordinance does require a minimum lot size based on the number of residential dwelling units. 3 units require a lot size of 12,000 square feet. The lot contains 8,610 square feet, so it's currently deficient. Obviously, adding additional units further makes it further non-compliant, and therefore they're seeking a variance request based on the not being able to meet the minimum lot size requirements. Zoning ordinance requires that all buildings be, when they're measured to the nearest point of living space, be no less than 25 feet from the property lines. In this case, you can see from the table, I'll reference the table in the report as well. The existing setbacks of the structure, the west, east, and south setbacks are currently non-compliant. The front yard setback is compliant. But the 2nd-story addition that they're proposing expands the building in a manner that doesn't comply with the current ordinance requirements, again, 25 feet. So they're seeking a waiver in order to expand the building in a non-conforming manner. The addition, second story addition on the sides, cantilevers, I'll refer to the petitioner's elevations. Slowly but surely. I'll reference this particular side, but each of the east and the west setbacks, the 2nd-story cantilevers 2 feet. So it further reduces the side yard setback measured from this point to the property line. They don't meet the 25-foot setback. The west property line would have a setback of 7.36 feet, and the east would have a setback of 7.62 feet. The zoning ordinance does require a one-way drive, and the petitioner is proposing a one-way drive along the east and west side of the building to access a parking lot in the back. And if we ever get to the site plan, slowly, I'll show you. Here we are. You'll see the driveway on the west side and the east side. to the parking spaces in the back. The zoning ordinance requires that each of these one-way in driveways be measured, be no less than 12 feet wide. And as you can tell, the additions to the building as well as the required masonry wall on the west side of the property, they narrow that driveway width and it only measures 9.62 feet wide on the east side, and the west drive aisle is 8.67 feet. So they don't meet the minimum drive aisle width. I will point out that we refer to the second floor cantilevering over the ground level, and that only leaves a clearance of 8 feet from the ground level to the underside of the second floor, proposed second floor. So that drive aisle is actually further reduced on the sides, and I'll refer to this one. So the drive aisle is located in this area. Those measurements I gave you were at the ground level. If you're at 8 feet, which is the measurement to the underside of that proposed second floor, measures only 8 feet. It further narrows the driveway. But the fire marshal didn't have any objections. Their comments were that they wouldn't actually bring a truck back there. We did point out that the apartment, one of the apartments is required to be a barrier-free apartment unit, and they have a van-accessible barrier-free parking space in the back. The minimum height clearance, and I know this from working on the parking structure that we're currently building, the minimum height clearance that's required for a van-accessible parking space is 8 feet 2 inches. So if somebody had a van-accessible van and wanted to live in this unit, they wouldn't be able to make it through the backside to park in the parking lot. Also, the ordinance requires 2 parking spaces per unit, and the parking lot that's noted provides 1 van accessible space and 4 standard parking spaces. So the petitioner is seeking a waiver of 7 from the minimum required 12 on-street parking spaces. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, ma'am.
Is there any multifamily zoning to the east of this property, or is it?
Yes.
There is?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the property to the east is zoned multifamily.
What about, oh, to the west?
To the west, there is a smattering of multifamily. Most of those are non-conforming.
Okay. And am I correct that all the prior nonconformities are being enlarged with this new plan?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just one quick one, if I could, Mr. Murphy. What is it in the ordinance that triggers the need for a handicap accessible living unit?
It's actually not the zoning ordinance, it's the building code requirement.
Okay.
So it's based on the number of units and reaching a certain threshold. The architect can clarify, but
Okay.
I believe once you reach 5 or more, then you start to get into the requirement that there be a minimum number of barrier-free units.
I noticed the barrier-free, and I just didn't know what triggered it, so thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Curtis?
Is it currently conforming as to parking now with 3 units? Are there 6 spaces?
We can look at the aerial photograph. There isn't a defined parking lot. It's more of the drive aisle, and the petitioner, who also lives at the premise, can also describe to you how that currently functions. But we can look at the aerial photograph, and there isn't a defined parking lot. So this would create, and I think the photographs provide some credence as well. You'll see there's a garage in the back, and there's a drive aisle or a driveway in which individuals park on.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. Can the petitioners come forward? Good evening. I could have you gentlemen introduce yourself for the record, please.
My name is Usman. I'm the owner of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Blank with Stucky Vitale Architects.
And Andrew Danner with Stucky Vitale Architects.
The floor is yours.
Go ahead, you can introduce the project if you want, just the starting point of how this project started with these guys.
Oh, okay.
And if I can ask you to come on microphone too, just in
Oh,
case
sure.
anybody's watching at home. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I've been living here for quite some time now with my son, and I would really love to be here for quite a while longer. And one of the aspirations were to upgrade the building to match the standards of the of neighboring properties that I have going on in my neighborhood, and add pleasure to my living as well as value and aesthetic approach to the neighborhood as well. I put a lot of time and effort into it to repair the place, but there's a lot of things that are required that are calling me to do all the upgrades that I'm asking for today. So to make sure that we do everything according to code and rules, we have Stucky Vitale Architects doing most of the work for me. Oh.
Okay, excellent. You gentlemen want anything, or?
Sure, I can talk a little bit. When Usman came to our office about, 18 months ago or so now, we sat with him. He had some ideas on pressing the limits on this house a little bit, and we have since met with the planning department a few different times, talking about density, how best to step down the 3-story apartments that exist to the east of them, using this building as more of a transition down to the single family to the west. I think we came up with a plan, basically taking the existing footprint and going vertical with it. Stepping the second floor was an idea that came about with Usman, and when we were going through the plans a little bit to try to maximize the second floor a little bit. The house is currently, as you know, non-conforming on a few of the sides. We've taken the footprint of it and tried to clean up a pretty low-slung, sort of frumpy structure that exists in the city. I think the materials that we've chose hopefully are complementary to other projects that are going on in the area, cleaning up the buildings in the area. The apartments to the east of us are relatively well maintained. It's a shared driveway, so and I know Usman has talked with these owners, and they are for cleaning up this rear yard of this property that exists today. And like was mentioned, currently everyone parks basically stadium style, like you probably do at your own houses if you don't have a driveway with a garage. People stack up in the driveway, and first one in has to wait till everyone backs out in the mornings. So I think the plan cleans up some of the existing issues that exist on the site today. We've included some of the comments about adding an ADA space to the rear on the property. Chances are, for a long time, this property may not have any ADA occupants, and I'm sure someone's going to park in this space. But either way, it's been striped for ADA provided. And I guess if there's any questions that anyone has, we can
Question
help
from the
answer.
petitioners. Yes, sir.
You're asking for a lot of off-street parking to be waived, and if you count up the number of beds, first off, nice design. It does make it look a lot nicer and whatnot. I have no problem with that. But you're creating a situation with 6 units that have 9 beds, so therefore, theoretically, if each person had their own cars, you're already off 2 spaces. And unlike a main road like 11 Mile or downtown where there's more parking ample nearby, you're just going to exacerbate any of the neighborhood, which I'm surprised no one's really here except for one person up yours, to talk about that problem that might be caused by more. So why did you go with 6 units versus, say, 5 and need for less parking and maybe not even as much nonconformity with the structure itself? Was there a reason?
There is no specific reason. The idea was to maintain the existing structure and just go straight up and have the same footprint that we have on the first floor. And if need be, we can definitely modify it to 5 or even 4 for that matter, but that drives a whole lot of cost, which it took me, like we mentioned, it took me 18 months to get here. To make alterations of such would cost me a lot more time to get to the point where I need to be. So hence the design was brainstormed, and we decided that we'll go this way.
Well, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but part of us trying to overrule, or rule in your favor is understanding your hardship. So what is the hardship of why we should grant you these variances?
I think it is through conversations with the planning department and wanting to increase density in this area. Usman lives in the neighborhood, the street is hardly ever parked. You can go there any time of the day and you'll never see cars in the street. And honestly, I think what he's trying to create is a more dense area here. The planning commission was for it when we met with them early on. Everyone felt that the overflow parking, if it was necessary in this condition, it would be surely settled on the street. The property to the east of us parks purely in their parking lot, which is still underserved, and I think it's, from what we saw earlier on, it's parked 2 to 1 or 2 to a unit, and you can drive by that property any day of the week and you'll see maybe a quarter of the lot filled with cars. So the thinking is that the type of product this is gonna attract is truly young family, single car occupants, potentially some with a second car, but likely a little bit. And what exists today is all single car occupants within this house. And I know that we need to follow ordinance, but we were asked by our owner to push it and push the density up, as well as the planning commission, and that's where we are today.
Now, Mr. Murphy, this actually has not been in front of the planning commission, has it?
Yes, it was approved by the planning commission
It
at
was
their
approved,
meeting in
okay.
December.
I must have
Approved
missed it.
unanimously by every board member.
I missed that in the write-up, I apologize. Any other questions for the petitioners?
I'll ask you the question about currently, there's 3 units,
Yeah.
and is there 6 off-street parking spaces available now?
Everyone parks in the driveway.
In
As
the
many
one
cars-
driveway, right?
There's,
In front of that?
there's 2 driveways. There's
Right.
one to the east and to the west. And everyone pulls into these driveways as needed.
And there's a garage as well.
Mhm. So the answer is yes, there are 6 off-street parking spaces available for
You
3
count the
units?
driveway as spaces. We can't count it today because it's
Because it's
been
a,
requested to be a
Yeah,
one-way in and
right.
out, which I think we've solved that problem. Could someone park in the driveway? You tell us. I mean, people will, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know at my home I do. I live in Huntington Woods. I've lived in Royal Oak for many years. Every house that I lived in, I never parked in a garage. I grew up here. I've lived in this area for 40 years and never parked in a garage. Park in the driveway.
Your wife won't let you park in the garage?
She parks in the garage now. There's one car, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, not saying any, I'm gonna just ask you gentlemen to take a seat real quickly and see if this one gentleman in the audience wants to speak on this matter. Are you here to speak on this one, sir?
Yes, I am.
Please come forward and introduce yourself if you would, please.
Good evening, my name is Frank Hobrecht, and I live at 1835 North Lafayette. I'm right around the corner from this property. I have a serious disagreement that we don't have a parking issue on Mary Street. On those 400 feet of Mary Street, there are probably 10 different rentals, and it is tight. It is real tight. We had snow just 3 days ago, and I just noticed this, and if I had a camera, I could have brought it to you. I came north on Washington to make a left turn on Mary. There was a car on the to my left. There was a car to my right. There was a car coming at me. You know, we're playing chicken, you know. So I wait, the other car passes, then we go through. This same building exists just about maybe 75, 80 feet to the west. They got 8 cars. I mean, they pump the cars in there. Every apartment has 2 cars. It's not 1-car households. And the painful part is that, and you know, with a little bit of reasonableness, one of the great services we have here in Royal Oak, we have pretty good street maintenance. So you rake your leaves, you put them out there the day before, that little, you know, that you kind of keep an eye on the that little sign coming out there, and a car parks on top. So what do? You got to go out there the next day and you got to bundle them all up and get rid of the leaves. We have snow emergencies. What do? People park their cars. You can't get out of your driveway. And, you know, my neighbor across the street, You know, I mean, sometimes he's really good this year because I've spoken to him and I said, please just put your car in your driveway. And, you know, because it's one of the good services that we have here in Royal Oak. But I can empathize with the DPW guys. I mean, they got to swerve around the cars, you know, for snow and for leaf pickup. So I don't understand how come a building is going from 3 units to 6 units with insufficient parking. I think the proponent should find some off-street parking somewhere. There are no decks, you know, in our vicinity. The project that's being just proposed here, the PUD at Washington Street, and the gentleman's got 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and they're building 70, 80 units, 1 space per bedroom, and that's what works. So I'd like to see them either cut down the number of units or find some off-street parking. Everything else, I agree, it's a nice design, but you need to find some off-street parking somewhere. And maybe they can make a deal with the nursing home or the apartment next door. I don't know, well, it's got to be close so it works. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, since there's nobody else out in the audience, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table for any questions or discussions. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. So anyways, and I'm glad Mr. Cole reminded me, we are down 2 members. You do need 5 affirmative votes in order for this to pass. If you want to wait till next month, hopefully we should have a full board then. We can open it back up and discuss it, where you would need 5 out of 9 as opposed to 5 out of 7. You guys want a second to discuss it, please do so.
We would like to go ahead and have it assessed today.
Okay.
And to answer the previous question that Mr.
Actually, and come to the microphone again if you would, please, sir.
Sorry. So, and for the previous question that Mr. Anthony was referring to, that can we reduce the number of units in the building? We can definitely accommodate that. My son loves living in Royal Oak. We love the school district, and I love living in Royal Oak. I don't want to move anywhere else, so I would make do with whatever the city calls for to make the project work for me. I'd like my house to look pretty on the street. It's among all the 2 of the houses that gentleman owns on the street are abandoned, and they really are a sore eye to the neighborhood. I'd like my house to look pretty, like the other houses that are being constructed in the neighborhood. So whatever the city calls for, I can accommodate that. Part of the reason for the 6 units is it works, cost-wise works for me to make this happen for me. But if it puts a little burden on me, then I can probably handle it that way too. But I would like my house to look pretty. So if there's anything that you guys are proposing, then I'll be glad to work that out in the design.
And excellent. Let me take it back to this side of the table and let's get the discussion rolling. Did you have a comment, Mr. Curtis?
Nope, I was just waiting on you.
I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'll
Mizuki?
go. I like the design. I think it will improve the neighborhood, but I'm very concerned about the lack of parking. I think it puts too much of a stress on the neighborhood to expect them to absorb all those spaces. And I'm also concerned about the overhang and the clearance and the fact that the drives are only going to be 8 feet wide. It's all things that I don't think there's a hardship that requires those kinds of changes, and I have a problem with them.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, I think we all did the math, looking at, like Anthony mentioned, bedroom counts or even a reduced ratio, 1.5 cars per unit. What's driving the need for 2-bedroom units? Is that part of your analysis, 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom? Even looking at it from a bedroom count, if some of those 2s are reduced to 1, that might help if we considered a reduction in parking.
We can definitely turn them into a 1-bedroom. That's not that big of an issue.
Is there a need, do you see that you live in the building, is there more of a need for two-bedroom versus one?
The idea was to keep the same layout that I had on the first floor.
I see.
And just drive straight up and have the same layout. And having the two-bedroom was aesthetically and required from the bank as well, that, hey, you know what, the numbers have to make sense for us to fund your project at the same time. So some of the changes were driven cost-wise. Some of the changes were just aesthetic, the overhang, for example. But currently, the way it is, the place is very underutilized. Parking is very disoriented if you're parking in the driveway. So I wanted to have a nice parking lot in the back and be able to organize things nicely. If there's some kind of nice organization, then even if the cars are parking on the street, it does not look bad or poor in the neighborhood. It's more appealing. So that was the whole idea. And if the need comes to be that, hey, we need to drop it down to a one-bedroom unit, no issues. We can definitely accommodate that.
Mr. Kroll?
I'm struggling a little bit with this conversation. I'm kind of feeling like we're up here gonna redesign this thing, and I don't think that's our role. I really don't think you have the votes up here. I mean, no one's really said, but in my mind, you don't have the votes to get this approved tonight. But yet, I would suggest you adjourn, come back with something, some compromise. We really don't like things more non-conforming than they started out. That'd be one key. And if in fact you can make it work with one bedrooms, I think you'd get some support up here. But I'm not comfortable redesigning this thing tonight.
No.
No, and that's certainly not our role. But that being the case, I mean, if we're uncomfortable with what's being proposed from a staff standpoint, would it be your preference that we simply move against this and then allow them to move forward with a different plan at a different time, or?
You can, if you feel comfortable enough adjourning and the petitioner is willing to accept that, then go back to the drawing board, we'll say.
Okay.
And we'll see if it necessitates new variances. If it necessitates new variances, then there'll be a new application fee and a new process. If it's modifications that don't necessitate new variance requests, then it would simply be brought back next month.
Otherwise, they have to wait a year, right?
If they're turned down, that's correct.
Unless they bring something totally different back, because then it's another fee. I
And
don't.
that's subjective, so.
I think, it sounds like there's some people that like the design. But boy, there's a lot of variances. So if we could cut back on some of those.
Right, and I agree with your neighbor. I mean, I happen to live on a street where there's virtually nobody who ever parks on my street, and I really kind of like that. And I don't know if I'd appreciate it if there was a plan being proposed that would create on-street parking that goes above and beyond what I currently, experience. And so by driving the parking requirements down, I think that'd be, again, I think I see a lot of heads nodding as far as that's concerned.
The day I visited the property, the street was pretty full. I mean, I noted that there were cars kind of everywhere on it, so I had a concern of that, certainly.
Yeah, Mary Avenue is pretty busy on the weekends just because of the local entertainment on
I
on
looked
Main
at it
Street.
early in the morning during the week, so I wasn't there on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
And I might have been there early enough that I didn't see the people that were there leaving or something, but I got a pretty good representation of the cars.
Sure.
So, the ball's in your court, sir. So if you're okay with it, we can make a motion to hold this over till next month, and you and your reps can meet with Mr. Murphy, and.
Sure. I would like that.
Do you want a motion to adjourn?
I can't make it.
Motion to adjourn till next month.
I'll support that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll see you in a month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. That's it for new business. We have other business with the 2017 annual report. Any comments on that, Mr. Murphy?
It's really just for informational purposes, unless you had any questions or comments, corrections. Oh, we do have something.
One of my first thoughts was that I was kind of surprised that there were less lot splits last year than the year before, but as Paul said, there's less inventory.
Yes, there's fewer to go around.
We're making them very rare by allowing so many.
All right. I will go ahead and open up public comment if there's anybody in the audience who wants to speak at this point. Not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close it, and I'm looking for the mystery motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll support.
We all made the motion.
I'm just gonna let you
I'm
figure
gonna go
that
with
out.
Alan and.
Go with someone else.
Okay, very good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.
That was